Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you just got played, but you can't quite put your finger on how? Maybe it was your boss who somehow convinced you to work the weekend again. Or that friend who always leaves you feeling confused about where you stand. Perhaps it's that nagging feeling when you're scrolling through social media, getting angry about things you can't control, wondering why you can't just put the phone down. You're not going crazy. You're not being paranoid. You're actually seeing something that most people miss completely. The same psychological tactics that powerful figures like Henry Kissinger perfected on the world stage didn't just disappear. They evolved. And today, they're being used on you every single day. And here's the part that'll really blow your mind. You've learned to use these same tricks on yourself. Think about it. How many times have you created your own fake deadline? How many times have you stressed yourself out over something that wasn't actually urgent? How many times have you argued with strangers online, thinking you're making a difference, when all you're really doing is making some tech company rich? The people who figured out how to manipulate masses of people didn't just disappear. They evolved. They got better. And now their techniques are everywhere. In your workplace, your relationships, your social media feeds, even in your own head. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's a marketing manager who used to panic every Friday afternoon when her boss would burst into her office with another emergency project. "We need this by Monday morning or we'll lose the client," he'd say, and Sarah would cancel her weekend plans, stress out her family, and work herself into exhaustion. After 8 months of this pattern, Sarah started paying attention. She noticed that most of these urgent projects would sit on her boss's desk for weeks after she completed them. Some were never even used. She realized her boss wasn't creating emergencies. He was creating control. Here's how manufactured urgency works. Someone creates artificial pressure to make you act without thinking. They compress your timeline so you don't have space to question their request, consider alternatives, or even ask if it's really necessary. When you're in panic mode, you're in compliance mode. You see this everywhere. Once you start looking, the limited time offer that pressures you to buy now, the relationship ultimatum that forces you to choose immediately, the work deadline that conveniently appears just when you are about to push back on something. But here's what's really insidious. We've learned to do this to ourselves. Sarah eventually realized she was creating her own artificial deadlines, procrastinating on projects just to recreate that familiar rush of last-minute panic. She had become addicted to the adrenaline of manufactured crises. Ask yourself these questions. When someone demands immediate action, what exactly happens if I wait 24 hours to decide? Who benefits most from this rushed timeline? What information might I be missing if I decide right now? Is this actually urgent or just important to them? Real emergencies don't disappear when you ask for time to think. In fact, the more someone resists giving you time to consider, the more suspicious you should become. Meet David. He spent 2 years trying to figure out what his girlfriend actually wanted from their relationship. She'd send him long emotional texts about how much she cared about him, then go silent for days. When he'd ask about their future, she'd give vague answers that could mean anything. "We'll see what happens," she'd say. "I just want to take things as they come." David was caught in what psychologists call strategic ambiguity. Deliberate, unclear communication designed to keep you guessing, seeking approval, and emotionally dependent. The person doing it maintains maximum flexibility, while you do all the emotional work of trying to figure out what they really mean. This technique was perfected by political strategists, who learned that keeping people confused and seeking clarity was more powerful than actually being clear. When you're constantly trying to decode someone's real message, you're not thinking about whether their message is even worth your time. You'll find strategic confusion everywhere in your life. The boss who gives vague feedback so you're always seeking their approval. The friend who makes passive-aggressive comments, then acts like you're overthinking when you ask what they meant. The company that writes policies so unclear that you never know if you're following them correctly. But again, we've learned to do this to ourselves. We've become afraid of being direct because we think being mysterious makes us more interesting. We avoid difficult conversations by being vague, then wonder why our relationships feel unstable. After interacting with someone, ask yourself, do I feel more confused than before we talked? Am I spending mental energy trying to decode what they really meant? Do I feel like I need their validation to feel secure? When you catch someone using strategic confusion for specificity, what exactly do you mean by that? When do you need a decision from me? What would success look like specifically? Help me understand what you actually want. Watch their reaction. People who communicate clearly will appreciate your questions. Manipulators will get frustrated because clarity removes their advantage. This one's subtle, but it's everywhere. Here's how it works. Instead of crushing your dissent, they control it. They give you ways to rebel that don't actually change anything important. Take social media. You can argue about politics all day, share articles that make you feel like you're fighting the system, and engage in heated debates with strangers. You feel like you're making a difference, like you're part of some resistance movement. But what's actually happening? You're generating engagement data that makes the platform money. Your rebellion is being monetized. The same thing happens in workplaces. There's always that one person who complains loudly about management. but never actually does anything to change the situation. They become the designated complainer, the pressure valve that lets everyone blow off steam without actually addressing the real problems. Controlled opposition works because most people need to feel like they're thinking independently. So instead of silencing dissent, smart manipulators give you safe ways to express it, ways that don't threaten their actual power or profits. Look at the results. After all the complaining, sharing, and arguing, what actually changed? Follow the money. Who's benefiting from your rebellion? Are the solutions being proposed actually solutions, or just ways to redirect your energy? The most dangerous controlled opposition is the kind you create within yourself. You complain about your job but never take steps to leave. You hate your social media addiction but never actually quit. You criticize the system while actively participating in it. You become your own pressure valve, letting off steam without ever taking real action. Here's what really happened to Sarah, David, and millions of others. They didn't just experience these manipulation techniques, they internalized them. They learned to recreate these patterns in their own minds because, in a twisted way, the patterns felt familiar and safe. Sarah became addicted to artificial urgency because it gave her a sense of importance and productivity. When things were calm, she felt anxious and useless. She had to create drama to feel valuable. David learned to be strategically ambiguous in his own relationships because he was afraid of being rejected. He thought keeping people guessing would make them more interested in him. Instead, he just created the same confusion he hated experiencing. This is the evolution of manipulation. It's not just something done to you anymore. It's something you've learned to do to yourself. The manipulators don't even need to be present. You've become your own puppet master. Let's get practical. These aren't abstract concepts. They're happening to you right now. Today, your boss creates false deadlines to test your compliance. Your colleague agrees with your complaints, but never supports your solutions. Your company presents two options for the new policy, but both options serve management's interests. You create your own stress by checking emails constantly, thinking it makes you more productive. Your partner creates relationship crises to avoid discussing real issues. Your friend keeps you guessing about their true feelings, so you're always working to maintain their approval. Your family member plays victim while controlling everyone else's behavior. You overthink every text message, creating anxiety where none existed. The news presents opposing viewpoints that both miss the real issue. Influencers appear to challenge the system while selling you products. Your social media algorithm feeds you content designed to make you angry and engaged. You argue with strangers online, thinking you're making a difference. You create artificial deadlines to avoid deeper thinking. You feel most valuable when you're in crisis mode. You're addicted to the adrenaline of last-minute solutions. You avoid difficult conversations by staying too busy. Today's manipulators have tools that previous generations never dreamed of. They can track your behavior, map your relationships, and predict your reactions with scary accuracy. Your phone knows when you're most vulnerable to certain types of content. Your social media feed is designed to keep you engaged, not informed. Your shopping apps use artificial scarcity to create urgency. Your news feeds are optimized for outrage, not understanding. But here's the thing. These tools only work because they're exploiting fundamental human needs. The need for certainty, the need for connection, the need for autonomy. The most sophisticated part, the people using these techniques on you might not even know they're doing it. Your boss learned to create urgency because it gets results. Your partner learned to be ambiguous because it keeps you engaged. Your friend learned to complain without acting because it feels safer than real change. So what you should do, start paying attention to how you feel after certain interactions. Do you feel confused, pressured, or manipulated? That's information. Trust that feeling. Keep a simple mental note of when you encounter artificial urgency, strategic confusion, controlled opposition. When someone tries to rush you, slow down. When someone confuses you, ask for clarity. When someone gives you fake choices, look for real alternatives. Practice saying, "I need some time to think about this." Watch how people react. The ones who respect your need for time are the ones worth keeping around. This is the hardest part because you have to catch yourself in the act. When you feel that familiar anxiety rising, ask yourself, am I creating this urgency myself? What am I avoiding by staying confused? Am I complaining instead of taking action? The best defense against manipulation is having real choices. That means building savings so you can leave a bad job, developing skills so you're not dependent on one person's approval, creating genuine relationships based on clarity, not confusion, taking real action instead of just complaining. When you stop participating in these games, you give others permission to stop too. Your family stops walking on eggshells. Your workplace becomes less dramatic. Your friends feel safer being authentic. I'm not going to promise you that recognizing these patterns will solve all your problems, but I will tell you what actually happens when you stop falling for psychological manipulation. You get your time back. You stop wasting energy on fake emergencies and manufactured drama. You start focusing on what actually matters to you. You get your peace back. You stop feeling anxious when things are going smoothly. You stop creating problems to solve just because chaos feels familiar. You get your relationships back. You stop attracting people who need to keep you confused and dependent. You start building connections based on mutual respect and clear communication. You get your power back. You stop being reactive to other people's emotional manipulation. You start making decisions based on your own values and timeline. Most importantly, you get yourself back. You stop being a stranger to your own thoughts and feelings. You start trusting your instincts again. Here's what really gets me excited about this. Every person you refuse to manipulate becomes someone who's less likely to manipulate others. Every boundary you set gives someone else permission to set boundaries. Every time you choose authenticity over games, you make it safer for everyone else to be authentic too. Your kids learn that they don't have to accept being rushed or confused. Your coworkers see that it's possible to ask for clarity without being labeled difficult. Your friends realize they can be direct without losing your friendship. You become a model for what healthy communication looks like. You show people that it's possible to have relationships without drama, work without artificial crises, and discussions without manipulation. I'm not going to give you homework because you're not a student, and this isn't school. But here's what I've noticed happens when people first start seeing these patterns. Today, you'll start noticing things. That urgent email might not feel quite so urgent. That friend's vague message might suddenly seem deliberately confusing. This week, you'll surprise yourself by saying, "I need time to think about this." Instead of immediately complying, you might catch yourself creating artificial urgency and actually stop. This month, you'll realize you don't need certain people's approval as much as you thought. You'll stop refreshing social media when you notice it's making you angry. You'll finally have that direct conversation you've been avoiding. The beautiful thing is that once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. And once you stop participating in them, you can't go back to being unconsciously manipulated. So the bottom line is, you don't need a PhD in psychology to protect yourself from manipulation. You just need to start trusting yourself again. Stop waiting for other people to validate your feelings. When someone makes you feel confused, pressured, or manipulated, that's information. Your gut is telling you something important. Start having real options. Most manipulation only works when you feel trapped. The person who can walk away from a bad job, a toxic relationship, or a manipulative situation is the hardest to control. In the end, it doesn't matter if these tactics come from a geopolitical strategist like Kissinger, from a social media algorithm, or your boss. The defense is always the same. Get your information from the source. Stop letting other people interpret reality for you. Want to know what someone thinks? Ask them directly. Want to understand a situation? Look at the facts yourself. Remember, if it's truly urgent, it can wait 24 hours for you to think about it. Real emergencies are rare. Most urgent things are just other people's lack of planning or attempts to bypass your critical thinking. Your psychological independence is your greatest act of rebellion. In a world designed to keep you reactive, confused, and dependent, your clarity and autonomy are revolutionary. Are you ready to stop being played? If you are, type awake in the comments below to join the conversation. Then, share one example of manipulation you've recognized in your own life since watching this. By sharing your story, you might help someone else recognize it in theirs. And finally, if you want to learn more about the psychological warfare being waged for your mind every day, make sure you subscribe. Because in this game, awareness is your only weapon.